Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of You Could Hide to Cola podcast. My name's Daniel. This is my brother, Clive.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the end of the year. The end of the year, we got Christmas, and then we're starting off fresh with the new year, the Old Testament. So pretty exciting. What a great way to wrap it up, too, talking about the family proclamation. And something I discovered this week, Daniel, which I want to kick off with the quote about. I learned this week that President Oaks went from Sunday school teacher to apostle. I didn't realize that. My assumption was, maybe stake president, mission president, 70, maybe. But yeah, no, straight from Sunday school teacher to apostle.
I went from Sunday school teacher to not apostle.
Yeah. I went Sunday school teacher to primary activities person. So.
All callings are important.
Exactly. But, his is the greatest.
And of course, Clive, President Oaks was a part of this proclamation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Been around for a while now. So my quote is about prophets. As I've said in the past, whenever I'm talking to anybody about the church, I always bring it back to the importance of prophets. So this is M. Russell Ballard, April 2001. And this is something that he's mentioned. He said, "Is there one clear, unpolluted, unbiased voice that we can count on? Is there a voice that will always give us clear direction to find our way in today's troubled world?" The answer is yes. That voice is the voice of the living prophet and apostles. And how true is that? Conference, they never steer us wrong. There's always, if you're on the social medias, they're always popping up every now and then, and it's always clear direction.
Clive, there's been a couple of little proclamations. We've talked about the declarations in last week's episode. This is a proclamation that was written when President Gordon B. Hinckley was leading the church. So the church isn't, it's not like these are common, but they're also not uncommon. They do happen from time to time. What's your thoughts on the family? I guess it's going to be, in this day and age, is it more of a challenge to talk about because we do have people who are finding it challenging to become part of a family, or we do have a lot of members in the church who are divorced. Is this proclamation a challenge for those sort of... I can't talk with, and neither can you actually, neither of us are divorced. We can't talk with any kind of confirmation or anything like that within us. But I guess some people can read this and feel a bit sad or feel a bit dejected that this is, all about, that family unit that is so central to the church.
Look, I agree. I think there can be sensitive topics when we talk about either the proclamation or just families altogether. But I think for this podcast, we don't try and justify the scriptures. We don't try and justify what the prophets say. We are very factual based. This is the facts, and this is the doctrine behind the facts. And I think if we just keep it factual, I think, like I said, I don't think we really need to justify. And the thing is as well with the gospel is, this is the doctrine, but also this is the case for other people. It's like, yes, this is what it is, but there's also those offshoots and those things that are more personal. And that's the thing about the gospel. Is a lot of things are very personal. But like I said, I think we just stick with the facts. Here's the facts, and this is what it is.
Clive, I might just kick us off. Let's get the ball rolling. I might read the first two paragraphs, and we can get straight into it. Okay, so we, the First Presidency, and the Council of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, solemnly proclaim that marriage between a man and a woman is ordained of God, and that the family is central to the Creator's plan for the eternal destiny of his children. Second paragraph. All human beings, male and female, are created in the image of God Each is a beloved spirit, son or daughter of heavenly parents, and as such, each has a divine nature and destiny. Gender is an essential characteristic of individual, premortal, mortal, and eternal identity and purpose. Clive, I want to give a very, very quick story how this is actually might lead to what you were talking about before, how we just want to present the doctrine as the doctrine and the facts as the facts. When I was called as institute teacher, we the very first lesson I took over from a unbelievably good institute teacher. He'd been institute for 10 years. He was such a great teacher, very, very well known. And then I took over. And my very first lesson to these young adults was on eternal marriage. And at the time, there was a big movement in Australia where there was a referendum where you would vote yes or no if you were happy for equal marriage, gay marriage. It was being referred to in the media as gay marriage. And so I talked about this in my class, and I presented it. This is 10 years ago, whenever that was, at least maybe 2018. And I presented it just as I do, just talking away as I go. And two students got highly offended over the way I was speaking in the class, and they stayed back and they said, hey, we don't like that you said the term gay marriage. We don't like this. We don't like that. And I said, hey, I'm just a normal dude. I'm just presenting it the best I can, and I'm using what kind of the media is saying is kind of generally accepted at the time. So when I think about this, was written in 1995, and back then, I don't think anyone would have had any issues with the sentence, people's genders are a real significant part of them made up in the premortal life. Like, people would have glanced over that in the 90s and gone, yeah, great, good addition. Where now there is a real threat. There is the adversary is really involved in this, and it is a challenge for a lot of families inside and outside of the church. And that is a real thing that is happening now.
I just want to mention actually why this actually came about. It goes really well with what you just said. So a couple of months before this actually came out, before President Hinckley spoke about this, in Beijing, there was a World Conference on Women. That's what it's called, World Conference on Women, where all the women from around the world would gather together. It was the largest UN gathering ever in 1995, from delegates from 189 countries. And they had a lot of key issues, and a lot of the key issues were really good. There was human rights for women, women in health, violence against women, education and training for women. So it was a very, very positive thing. But then there was also other things like new definitions of gender, new definitions of family, global reproductive guidelines, parents' rights versus children's rights, and then just broader sexual rights and policies. And so something that started out very positive sort of shifted, like you said, as the world sort of changed to, here's some really positive things we need to talk about, and then here's some things as the world changes that maybe we should define differently. And so this came out to sort of explain that God's ways has always been his ways, no matter how much the world changes. So we can take something now and in 10 years could be offensive in the same way that this was spoken back then as the world was changing, and now things are starting to become offensive.
That's a great point. Shall I read the next paragraph? I don't think we're going to read the whole thing, or maybe we are, but shall I read the next one?
We can read the next one. I just want to point out some key things that you said.
Yeah.
That marriage is an eternal truth ordained by God. From the very beginning, God has always talked about the importance of marriage. It's not just a certificate so the government can say that you can now have land or whatever it was back then. Now, it's obviously not that because, times have changed. Gender isn't something that's that you're born with. It's something that you have always had in the premortal life. So it's not something that God makes up his mind as you're born. It's always something that's been eternal. So these two important things that is mentioned right at the beginning are two things that are eternal.
The next one, Clive. In the premortal realm, spirit sons and daughters knew and worshipped God as the eternal Father and accepted his plan by which his children could obtain a physical body and gain earthly experience to progress toward perfection and ultimately realize the divine destiny as heirs of eternal life. The divine plan of happiness enables family relationships to be perpetuated beyond the grave. Sacred ordinances and covenants available in holy temples make it possible for individuals to return to the presence of God and for families to be united eternally. One thing I just very quickly to point out here is what it is. It says in here that in the premortal realm, we accepted God's plan. It is false doctrine. It is Mormon folklore that there were two plans presented to us. This is something that we get caught up on, or we kind of trip ourselves up on, that there was two plans. There was Satan's plan and there was God's plan, and we decided to follow God's plan. Actually, there was just one plan, and there was a rebellion against that one plan. After the plan was told to us all, we shouted hallelujah and other things that prophets, modern day prophets, have taught us about this experience. And then later on, the adversary and possibly others had their own plans, and they were going around saying, that plan that you heard about a month ago, I think I've got a better one. Here's what we'll do. Here's what I should do if you vote for me, kind of situation. So this is not, so our doctrine is that there's one plan presented to us, not two. The second, Satan's idea, was a rebellion against that plan. Clive, the next one, the first commandment that God gave to Adam and Eve pertained to their potential for parenthood. As husband and wife, we declare that God's commandment for his children to multiply and replenish the earth remains in force. We further declare that God has commanded that the sacred powers of procreation are to be employed only between man and woman, lawfully wedded as husband and wife.
This is a great one, because if you think about what the first thing that Adam and Eve were taught was to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. At no point has God or Christ, when he came in his ministry, said, actually, we're not doing that anymore. This is not a commandment that's ever changed. This is a commandment that has always been there. There are many spirit children in heaven that need the opportunity to come down to earth. And this is what our purpose is, to get God's children, to rear them up, which is going to talk about later, about teaching your children. But, but then, as it says there, they should be only in the case of lawfully wedded men and women. Obviously, and again, I'm not going to justify what it says there. And obviously there's different cases around the world, but this is what it says. And, I always tell my kids, because they're quite young, oh, you can only have children when you're married. It doesn't work any other way. So hopefully that sticks with them through their 30s.
Clive, the other thing I thought I'd mention on this is the what I am going to describe as an attack on the family relating to kids, which is just how expensive it is to live now. And how people I know are saying, well, yeah, we want kids, but it's so expensive. We want 3, 4, 5 kids. But in reality, we can actually only afford to have 1 or 2 children. And I know in lots of Western countries, the birth rate between a husband and wife is, in some countries, it's 1.5. Populations are declining because it's so expensive. And I feel like this is also an attack from the adversary that is slowing this rate down, slowing the amount of people that can be born down. And some people are not even able to have children at all through some of these situations. So I think this is a troubling factor that will only get worse as time definitely goes on.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember when we thought, when should we have kids? When's the right time? I remember Mum saying to us, there's never a right time. You just got to sort of have kids and work it all out from there. And you're right, it is so expensive. And you think, is it worth it? But of course it is.
Well, Clive, the Australian Bureau of Statistics says that there's 38.8% of couples who don't have children. They are referred to as the lucky ones. They have no children, and there's a lot of them. Maybe they're the ones buying up all the real estate.
Yeah, yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, they're the ones buying all the homes.
Yeah. Okay, Clive. I might just the next one's really small. I might just go to we declare the means by which mortal life is created to be divinely appointed. We affirm the sanctity of life and of its importance in God's plan. Husband and wife have a solemn responsibility to love and care for each other and for their children. Children are an heritage of the Lord. Parents have a sacred duty to rear their children in love and righteousness, to provide for their physical and spiritual needs, and to teach them to love and serve one another, observe the commandments of God, and be law abiding citizens wherever they live. Husbands and wives, mothers and fathers will be held accountable before God for the discharge of these obligations.
For the first beat that you were talking about, the ability to create is a holy power from God, and every living creature is precious. And God's children are in heaven, God's spirit are in heaven, waiting to come down to have this opportunity. It is a precious gift. And then it talks about, well, not only that, but when they are here, it is our responsibility to not only love and care for these children, but also our sacred duty. And I think that's very important, sacred duty to rear up our children in love and righteousness. I think the fact that parents will be held responsible at the last day for their children is very, very important. Again, I'll go back to my mum. One thing that she said to me during, when I was quite young, it was actually about you.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so
We'll beep this bit out and embarrass me.
it was basically saying that as parents, we do everything we possibly can, and that it's up to our children to then find their own way. And I think looking back at our parents, it wasn't super easy being a child, and it probably never is for anyone. But we all come about, and we all turn about our own way. Our parents do everything that they possibly can, and then it's up to us to fill in the rest. And I think that's the responsibility. Do everything, not, you know what, that's enough. You can figure out the rest yourself.
Was I doing unchurch things at that time?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good. Okay, moving on. The one thing I would mention about this, Clive, is that the church helps raise your children in this environment that it talks about. And last night, our stake had a night called Night in Bethlehem, where anyone from around the community comes to our chapel and they experience life as if they were in Bethlehem, and then they go into the chapel and there's a nativity. A plug for them at Night in Bethlehem. Find it on Instagram. It was seriously so great. So anyway, my wife and I were in a booth, and we were at a fishing. We were in a fishing booth, and a guy came over to me, and his kid jumped in this boat, was doing some magnetic fishing. And he said, "Oh, you guys a congregation? Are you guys a part of the congregation?" And I said, "Yes." And anyway, we got talking, and he said to me that now he's got him and his wife were there, and they have 2 children. And he was saying that they are looking for something more. They're looking for something more now. And I was reflecting on this point here about raising children, in that in the church, and I was explaining this to him, that in the church, you're not on your own. You're not on your own raising children at all. There's primary teachers who spend time each week figuring out how to teach your children. There's young men's and young women's leaders who spend countless hours every week, maybe 20 hours a week, in conversations, in thought, in prayer, in actual being physically on site with your children, trying to help them realize that Jesus is the Christ, and trying to help them grow up in a wonderful environment that's safe. And so I was talking to this guy about it, reflecting how important that is and how important that's been in my life, that we've had these people, that we've gone to all these different wards. Yeah, we've moved around a lot. And every time you go to a new ward, there is always people there who are going to help you raise your children in this Christ-centered way. And, the church and its community is something unheard of how close people are in a non-paid environment, by the way, and all volunteers' time. All these people are trying to raise. I don't think there's anything like it in the world.
I've always taken advantage of the fact that primary exists, the fact that, sweet, my kids can go to primary and I can just worry about myself. But you're totally right. I don't know why, but I've never thought of it that way. Like, I've taught lots of different classes, and you're right. I think, okay, this is what I want to teach. Now I know this person understands this in this way, so I need to tailor it to that, and I need to tailor it towards this person as well. And yeah, you're right. If I think back, I think, well, my kids are in primary, and they think about my child individually and go, well, I need to tailor it a little bit towards Paige because she doesn't understand as much as Emma, like, or whatever it may be. So you're absolutely right, and that's a great way to look at it. I've never even thought of that.
Let's carry on. The family, this one's a bit long. The family is ordained of God. Marriage between man and woman is essential to his eternal plan. Children are entitled to be born children are entitled to birth within the bonds of matrimony, to be reared by a father and a mother who honor marital vows with complete fidelity. Happiness in family life is most likely to be achieved when founded upon the teachings of Jesus Christ. I'm going to stop there, even though I'm about a third of the way through. The wording here is not, you will only be successful if you are a Latter-day Saint. Life is only going to be good for you. You will only be successful if you're a Latter-day Saint. That is not what this is saying at all. This is saying, in our view, in our beliefs, happiness in family life is most likely to be founded upon the teachings of Jesus Christ. This can be anywhere in the world. People who are focusing on Christ and honoring Christ's teachings, whether they've heard of Latter-day Saints or not, we are professing that those people and those homes will find happiness. Successful marriages and families are established and maintained on principle of faith, prayer, repentance, forgiveness, respect, love, compassion, work, and wholesome recreational activities. By divine design, fathers are to preside over their families in love and righteousness and are responsible to provide the necessities of life and protection for their families. Mothers are primarily responsible for the nurture of their children. In these sacred responsibilities, fathers and mothers are obligated to help one another as equal partners. Disability, death, or other circumstances may necessitate individual adaptation. Extended families should also lend support when needed.
I think what you emphasize there is absolutely right. I think a lot of people outside the church don't really understand when we say that fathers are to preside over the family in love and righteousness and to provide the necessities of life and protect for their families. People jump to the conclusion of, you think dad needs to work, and then it says mothers are primary responsibilities for nurturing the children. You think moms should just stay home. No, that's not what it's saying at all. You've really got to look into it properly. And then the part that you emphasize, which is very, very important, that people always seem to miss outside the church. Fathers and mothers are obligated to help one another as equal partners. This isn't the father's the boss of the family and the mothers are essentially with the children all the time and their nannies. It's not the case whatsoever. There's hierarchies in the church for the case of organization. This is how we're going to organize things. But, a missionary companionship, you don't have one that is greater than the other. They're equal. God and Jesus Christ, they always speak that they are equal. This is my father, this is my son, they're equal. And that's the important things about husbands and wives. It's not whatever the wife says or whatever the husband says is the case. They're meant to be equal partnerships. And I think that's very, very important for people to remember.
Yeah, it is. It's stick that the church cops. I think it's through laziness in my mind. Like, if you're going to have a go at the church, this is a lazy point that, well, it's because you think men are better than women. This is just simply not the case. I was having just a very comical point not about this, but similar vein is with my wife and I were talking about getting Christmas presents. And on Christmas, maybe like you, I'm equally as shocked as to what the children have for Christmas.
Yeah,
very
100%.
shocked.
Yeah.
And my wife was saying, "Oh, I haven't got all the Christmas presents. Why do I have to get the present?" She's saying, and then she's like, then we kind of got to this point where it's like, whoever gets the Christmas presents, that's the best because you've got more time because the other person's working. She gets to buy the presents and gets the joy of buying the presents. I'm at work. I don't want to be at work. I'd rather not work, and I'd rather be out buying the children Christmas presents. These are just the roles that her and I play. That I work, and she works as well, but I work and am the main breadwinner. And therefore, because I'm at work more, she then goes out and gets all the presents. These are just the roles that we play, and they are equal roles. In fact, I envy her with the joy she gets to floating around the shops, buying stuff that the kids would love and thinking about how much they would like these things and how happy they're going to be on Christmas Day, while I'm at work and I'm going, oh man, I got to keep going because we need to buy these presents. So not the same, but I guess that's quite a humorous way I look at the equality of the roles, and I do think it's a very lazy jab at the church, to be quite honest.
I totally agree.
And also not only lazy, but that so many people put down the roles of women by saying, oh, they're not as good as men, and they're just glancing over the important roles that females play within the church, which is robbery. It's absolute robbery to those organizations. Shall I read the last two?
Yep, let's do it.
We warn that individuals who violate covenants of chastity, who abuse spouse or offspring, or who fail to fulfill family responsibilities will one day stand accountable before God. Further, we warn that the disintegration of the family will bring upon individuals, communities, and nations the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets. We call upon responsible citizens and officers of government everywhere to promote those measures designed to maintain and strengthen the family as the fundamental unit of society.
There's just 2 points I want to make with these. That we will always be judged at the end of the last day. That's just an essential thing. But the fact that God has allowed us to be a family unit for eternity and take care of the children that we've been assigned to, I think the judgment there, if we are, I think it's just going to be a bit more harsh than did you fulfill your role as a good worker. I think it's very much, I have allowed you to do this, and if you don't do those things, this is the judgment coming upon you. I think it's a stern warning, a very important one. The second thing I want to mention is this isn't something that we are told to do once we're baptized. Once you're baptized, read the family proclamation and follow the steps. That's not what it's saying. This is a warning and a voice for the whole world. If the world were to follow these steps, like I said at the beginning, they had this UN got all these people together and decided these things and said, this is what we're going to do from now on. This is for the whole world to say, actually, God has always ordained families. God has always allowed us to have his spirit children here on earth and to rear them up. This is for the whole world to understand, not just those that are members of the church.
No, that's fantastic, Clive. What a great way to wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If you could, hi to Kolob, catch us on Facebook and Instagram, catch us on YouTube, subscribe to us there. What a wonderful year 2026 has been. I'm grateful that we've been able to do this podcast and study so much about the scriptures this year. We got our Christmas lesson next week. We hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas and gets to spend time with their loved ones, or however you enjoy celebrating this time of year. If you're not a member, reach out to the missionaries, reach out to your local church, and we hope you can enjoy the season as we will. We will see you after Christmas.